Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. So, welcome to our science activity, Grade 10C. Welcome you all, and also your mothers who are accompanying you, inshallah. So, let's start our activity today. So, this is the invitation which I sent to Mrs. Wafa for your science activity. And this was the invitation I sent to all your mothers. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is our science activity. So, let's start with the words from the Quran.
هذا خلق الله هذا خلق الله فأروني ماذا خلق الذين من دونه بل الظالمون في ضلال
So let's start our science activity with the objective. The objective is to inspire the young students to take up studies and careers in the disciplines of science and technology. And the aim of the science activity week is to show the young students what is possible through science and the exciting careers and opportunities that these disciplines can present to them, inshallah. So let's start our activity today. The first to present would be Layan Al-Taqafi. She's going to present a model of influenza virus. The objective is to explain the structure, symptoms, and precautions to be taken against influenza virus. And the activity is she made a model. So I'm going to play a video which she made about this influenza virus. So let's watch it. Do let me know if the audio is clear.
Influenza flu.
Can you hear it, ladies?
Competency. Video content. What is virus?
Is the audio?
What is influenza viruses? Influenza structure. Influenza flu. Done by competency. Video content. What is virus? What is influenza? What is influenza viruses? Influenza structure. Whom does it affect? Symptoms of influenza, diseases and infection caused, and treatments. What is virus? A virus is an infectious particle made only of the basic DNA or RNA surrounded by a protein code. Viruses have some characteristic of living things but not all, and they need living cells to help them reproduce and make protein. What is influenza? Influenza is a viral infection that attacks your respiratory system, your nose, throat, and lungs. Influenza is commonly called the flu. And also in the virus classification, influenza viruses are RNA viruses that make up the 3 of the 5 genera of the family Orthoxviridae, which is type A, B, and C. Influenza type A. The influenza type A viruses are the most virulent human pathogens among the 3 influenza types and cause the most severe disease. Type A influenza are capable of infecting people as well as animals and have 8 RNA segments. Type B infect humans and is less common than influenza A, and this type of influenza mutate at a rate 2 to 3 times lower than type A. Type C. Influenza type C, which infect humans, dogs, and pigs, sometimes cause both severe illness and local epidemics, and it has 7 segments. And here is the summary of the 3 types of influenza viruses. Influenza structure. Influenza viruses A, B, and C are very similar in overall structure. The virus particle is 80 to 120 nanometers in diameter and usually spherical in shape. And now we will know what does the influenza structure include. Here is the model that I made. First thing, it includes the normandide, which is a group of enzymes. Second thing, lipid envelope. Third thing, capsid, which is a protein shell of virus enclosing its genetic material. Fourth thing is the hemagglutinin, which is involved the RBCs, which is red blood cell. Finally is the nuclear protein, which include RNA and sometimes DNA. Whom does it affect? It affects the young children under age 5 and especially those under 12 months. It also affects people who have chronic illnesses such as asthma, heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease, and also diabetes. Adults older than age 65, people with weakened immune system. Symptoms of influenza. There are many symptoms to determine influenza. Here are some. First thing is headache, runny or soft nose, extreme tiredness, coughing, vomiting.
Assalamu alaikum, Sima. Assalamu alaikum, girls.
Over 100.4 Fahrenheit or 38.
Welcome to our science activity.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Really, I just joined. I'm so sorry if I'm late. And I'm so happy and glad to be a part of your science activity, to attend your science activity, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. We just started. We are explaining the model made by Influenza Virus by Layan Al-Daqafi. MashaAllah. So I'm playing the rest of the video. Thank you so much.
Okay, inshallah.
Diseases and infections caused. Viruses that cause influenza spread from person to person, mainly by droplets of respiratory fluid sent through the air when someone infected with the virus coughs or sneezes. Other people inhale the airborne virus and can become infected. Also, the influenza viruses are constantly changing, with new strains appearing regularly. If you have had influenza in the past, your body has already made the antibodies to fight that particular strain of virus. Treatments. Have a bed rest and drinking plenty of fluids. Second way, you can take an antiviral infections such as Tamiflu and Rapivab, which can lessen these symptoms. You can prevent the influenza by doing exercise, keep your hands clean, cover your mouth and nose, and eat healthy. And finally, thank you for watching.
Thank you so much, dear. It's very informative. Thank you, Habibti, for all your efforts.
Influenza the flu.
Yes, Layan, would you like to speak about it as well?
Competency. Video content. What is virus? What is influenza?
Okay, so this is the model made by Layan Al-Daqafi. MashaAllah, that was very well explained, Layan. Very nice model as well, and you clearly explained about the sentence, structure, precautions. That was very well presented, MashaAllah. Thank you so much, Layan. Now let's move on to our next participant, who is Leen Al-Banna. Leen is going to present a presentation about COVID-19. The objective is to explain the symptoms and precautions to be taken against COVID-19, and activity is making a presentation. Leen, I'll make you the presenter now. You can go ahead and talk about it.
Thank you.
Give me a moment. Yes, Leen Al-Banna. Yeah, you are the presenter now, Leen.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
Yes, sure.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you. Could you be a little louder, please?
Yes. How about now?
Yes, clear. Thank you.
Is this
Put the presentation on the viewer mode, sweetie.
Yeah. Is it clear?
Yes, thank you.
So good morning and welcome everyone. I am Lena and Binna, and today I'll be talking about a deadly virus that's been invading our planet for the past few years, the coronavirus. So before I go into detail about it, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what viruses are in general. And in order to familiarize yourself with the topic, I'll compare them to cells. As most of you know, a cell can be simply defined as the basic unit of life, meaning all organisms are composed of cells. In contrast, viruses are infectious particles that may infect these cells by entering them and replicating themselves. Moving on to their basic anatomies or structures. A cell consists of three main parts: the cell membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus. The nucleus basically encloses the cell's genetic material, which is our DNA. Similarly, viruses also contain a genetic material. However, it can either be RNA or DNA, and it's protected by the capsid, which is a protein coat. Moving on to the types of viruses, specifically the coronavirus. Now, you might have heard the term COVID-19 used very often these days, and that's what the coronavirus disease is known as. The reason behind this is because the outbreak occurred in 2019, and it's caused by a newly discovered virus called the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2, or simply abbreviated as SARS-CoV-2. The inner structure of the virus looks like this, consisting of RNA, which is the genetic material, surrounded by the capsid. Projecting off of the surface of the virus are surface proteins, including the spike or S protein, membrane or M protein, and finally the envelope or E protein. Now, as mentioned earlier, viruses can only cause infections by entering cells, and so the function of these proteins is to help the virus enter the cell. Now, one of the reasons why COVID-19 is very dangerous is because it spreads really quickly from person to person. So basically, when a person inhales droplets containing the virus, he or she becomes infected. And then when that infected person coughs, sneezes, or even speaks, they can easily transmit the virus, infecting many other people. And logically, one of the ways to prevent a virus from spreading is to cover its source, which in this case is the nose and mouth, using a face mask, for instance. That way, the viruses won't escape in the first place, and from a different point of view, a very small amount will enter. Therefore, wearing a mask can help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Other ways that may assist in ending this pandemic may include the following. First and foremost, cover your cough. Open your house window for fresh air. Rinse all items thoroughly, because, for instance, if an infected person touched an item, and then you touched it followed by touching your face, you'd very likely be infected. It's also really important to obey the World Health Organization's health rules, never leave the house unless it was urgent, and allow your body to rest and sleep well. We all want to put an end to this pandemic, and we can only do so by working together as a team and as a community. By taking all these precautions, we can step by step put an end to this pandemic. And with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. I really hope you found this beneficial, and have a great day.
Wow, thank you so much, Leen. That was very well presented, mashallah. Thank you for giving a new insight into the coronavirus, and inshallah ends as early as possible. Masiba, would you like to say something about it? Alright, the next to present is Shahad Al-Babi. She's going to present an activity on cellular respiration as well as glycolysis. The objective is to explain the process of cellular respiration and glycolysis in detail. The activity is to make a video. I'm going to play the video right now, which was made by Shahad. Give me a moment, please.
1 ATP is made per glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate in both reactions 7 and 10. This means a total of 4 ATPs are produced in glycolysis. Both of these steps are carried out by a kinase reaction. Note that step 7 is reversible, while step 10 is not. It is important to remember that the products in steps 6 through 10 are formed for each of the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate molecules generated in steps 4 and 5. This means that a total of 2 NADH and 4 ATPs are made in glycolysis. Because 2 ATPs were spent in the early steps of the pathway, glycolysis results in a net of 2 ATPs.
Miss Seema,
Yes.
There is one more.
this is the wrong video.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Can you, yeah.
Is this the one? Shahid?
Start from the beginning, yes.
This one, the second one, right?
The second one.
All right.
Good job.
This one?
Cellular respiration. It is the process.
Okay, I'll play it from the beginning.
Cellular respiration. It is the process by which.
Is the audio clear?
Yes.
Okay, so let's play it. This is the one, right, Shahid? All right, let's play it.
Cellular respiration. It is the process by which organisms combine oxygen with foodstuff molecules, and there are the organisms that do not depend on oxygen degrades foodstuffs called fermentation. Role of mitochondria. The role is to convert the energy contained in a chemical bonds into the energy-rich compound ATP, which captures the chemical energy obtained from the breakdown of food molecules and releases it to fuel other cellular processes. Main metabolic processes. It can be distilled into 3 main metabolic stages or steps: glycolysis, the tricarboxylic acid cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation. Tricarboxylic acid cycle, known also as the TCA cycle, and it plays a central role in the breakdown or catabolism of organic fuel molecules. It's a series of chemical reactions used by all the aerobic organisms, made of 8 steps to release stored energy through the oxidation of steels, CoA, diverted from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins.
That's it, Shahid. Shall I play the next video?
Yes, miss, yes.
Sure. This is the one. Shahid, is this the one? Can you please confirm?
ATP is
Yes,
the key
miss,
energy
yes.
molecule for all biological organisms. One source of ATP is glycolysis, a series of reactions that break down sugars while producing ATP. Glycolysis is a series of 10 reactions that converts sugars, like glucose, into 3 carbon molecules called pyruvate. Glycolysis is an important pathway for cells because it produces ATP and other products such as NADH and pyruvate that can be used later to produce more ATP for a cell. This key process takes place in the cytosol of the cell. Let's take a look at an overview of the key steps of glycolysis and focus on the input and output molecules. The first 5 steps of glycolysis convert a 6-carbon sugar, glucose, into 2 3-carbon sugars, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. To do so, ATP is consumed in the first and third steps. Both of these chemical reactions are catalyzed by ATP is made per glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate in both 4 and 5. This means that a total of 2 NADH
Okay, thank you so much, Shahid. The video which you made was really nice and very well explained, mashallah. Thank you so much for your efforts. All right, now let's move on to our next participant. Give me a moment.
Thank you, Shahid. Thank you so much.
You can view the screen, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. The next to present is Jana Al-Hakmi. She's going to, she did a science activity on fermentation. The objective is to explain the process of fermentation, and the activity is making a presentation. Now I'm going to play the presentation. Jana, are you ready to explain it?
Yes, teacher, but can I just make it a share screen?
Yeah, sure, you can share the screen as well. Let me make you the presenter. Sure.
You can see my screen, right?
Yeah, you can see your screen. Put it on viewer mode.
Okay. So I'm going to start from the beginning again.
Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all fine. Today, we're going to talk about fermentation process. To understand the meaning of fermentation, we have to know why and when it occurs. As well as we all know, cells should daily maintain enough oxygen for our body, especially if we are doing an action, as if like writing, watching, and eating, and so on. We also know that glycolysis occurs without oxygen because if there was oxygen, the products of glycolysis, which are pyruvate and electron carrier NADH, are used in cellular respiration. Oxygen picks up electrons at the end of the electron transport chain in cellular respiration. So what happens if there is no oxygen to pick up the electrons? So, what is fermentation and what causes the fermentation? Fermentation is an aerobic process that allows glycolysis to continue without using oxygen. So fermentation does not produce ATP, but it removes the electrons from NADH molecules and also recycles NAD molecules. Fermentation process is very important because glycolysis needs a molecule instead of oxygen to pick up the electrons, which will be the NAD molecules. As you see, this chart classifies the difference between fermentation and cellular respiration process. So we have an organic compound which is making glycolysis. After that, glycolysis produces glycolysis produces the pyruvate acid and 2 ATP molecules. Then, if oxygen is present, cellular respiration occurs to produce about 36 ATP molecules and of carbon dioxide plus water. While if there is no oxygen, either lactic acid or ethanol is produced. Without NAD, for picking the electrons, glycolysis would stop. Once electrons are picked, cells continue to break down the glucose and other sugars into ATP. If a molecule of glucose is split by glycolysis, but oxygen is not available, lactic acid fermentation begins. These are the steps of lactic acid fermentation. Number 1, pyruvate and NADH by glycolysis enters fermentation process. 2 NADH molecules provide energy to change the pyruvate into lactic acid. As NADH is used it is converted back into NAD. Number 2, 2 molecules of NAD are recycled back to glycolysis. This recycling allows the glucose to continue. The rule of fermentation is simply to provide glycolysis with a steady supply of NAD, but fermentation itself does not produce ATP, it only allows glycolysis to continue. Fermentation produces lactic acid waste product which build up the muscles cells causing you to feel the burn. Once oxygen is available, cells return to the cellular respiration process returns to be used. So you keep breathing hard after exercise to maintain the oxygen, which will help in breaking down the lactic acid. Not only lactic acid is an aerobic process, we also have alcoholic fermentation which occurs in many yeasts and some plants. Alcoholic fermentation at the same point as the lactic acid fermentation begins at the same point. 2 net ATP pyruvate and
أخاف لما يجري لما كذا هو صار أصلع طيب فشكله كله سلك فمرة يخوفني مرة يوتر مو أمزح
2
هو
and
حلو بس ترى مرة يخوف.
Whose mic is open? Girls? Ved? Can you please put your mic on mute?
alcoholic fermentation again begins at the same point as the lactic acid fermentation. 2 net ATP pyruvate and NADH molecules are produced by the split of glycolysis to glucose. So this is how alcoholic fermentation works. Number 1, pyruvate and NADH from glucose enters alcoholic fermentation. 2 NADH molecules provide energy to break down the pyruvate into an alcohol and carbon dioxide. As the NADH molecules are used, they are converted back into molecules. The molecules of NAD are recycled back to glycolysis. The recycling of NAD allows glycolysis to continue.
Okay.
Alcoholic
How many slides do we have, Jana?
Teacher, it's just 2 slides, 2 more slides.
Okay, please finish it fast, sweetie.
Okay. Alcoholic fermentation in food. The alcoholic fermentation occurs in food too. For example, the yeast is used to make the dough of pizza.
Yes.
Yeast breaks down the sugar's dough through the glycolysis and alcoholic fermentation. The carbon dioxide gas produced by alcoholic fermentation causes the dough to rise up. While baking, the alcohol produced during fermentation evaporates, so the yeast is killed during baking. Here are some examples of fermentation in life. As you all see, yogurt is made by lactic acid fermentation and also running. When you run for a long time, you feel your muscles hurt. This is resulted from fermentation. And here, this is how yeast looks like, as you all definitely know. And last picture is how a dough rises up after adding the yeast.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jana. That was very about the hepatitis B virus and the symptoms and how it is caused. Thank you so much. Let's move on to Samira. Samira Jad. She made a science activity on the difference between a seasonal and coronavirus. The objective is to explain the difference between seasonal and coronavirus, and activity is making a PPT. So I'm going to play the PPT. Samira, are you ready to speak about it, sweetie?
Yes.
Yes, Samira. Can you watch the presentation on the screen?
Yes. The difference between seasonal influenza and coronavirus. How are COVID-19 and influenza virus similar? Firstly, COVID-19 and influenza virus has a similar disease presentation. That is, they both cause respiratory diseases, which represent as a wide range of illness from asymptomatic or mild throat to severe disease and death. Secondly, because both are transmitted by contact droplets and polluted as a result, the same public health measures as hand hygiene and food dispensing are important actions all can make to prevent infection. The difference between influenza and COVID-19 symptoms. The first symptoms COVID-19 and influenza are similar. They are pretty extensive fever and respiratory symptoms such as cough and sore throat. Motor transmission. Both viruses are also transmitted the same way through droplets from people who cough or sneeze.
Risk factors. The good news is there are vaccines for influenza providing protection, especially for virus protection, as old adults, pregnant women, young children, people with active diseases. With COVID-19, the risks are higher, but now we have medicine for COVID-19. What medical interventions are available for COVID-19 and influenza? While there are a number of currently in clinical trials in China and more than 20 vaccines in development for COVID-19, actually there is licensed vaccine or for COVID-19 in contrast. Vaccines are available for influenza, while vaccines are effective against COVID-19 virus. It is highly recommended to get vaccines each year to prevent influenza infection. Thank you for watching and stay safe. Then bye, Samira. Jad can see.
Thank you, Samira. That was very good information about the difference between the seasonal influenza and the coronavirus. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samira. Very well presented, Habibti. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hiba, for gracing your presence and encouraging all the girls. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Seema, for doing the same thing for the girls, and thank you all the girls for your hard work, and very pleased to be part of your science activity.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hiba. And thank you so much all the girls, all the participants especially. Thank you for your hard work, all the presentations and videos. They were amazing, inshallah. I want all of you to get recognition for it, inshallah, by today evening.